I see that ITV's Robert Peston has just released at 7:58 tonight. What's that? About 42 minutes ago, an article in which he says the elderly could be quarantined for 4 months in what he's describing as a wartime-style mobilisation to combat coronavirus. He says that his sources is telling him that this would be a series of measures prepared by the Prime Minister, Health Secretary, Chief Medical Officer and Chief Scientific Advisor to prevent the health service from falling over and to save lives. Obviously, we'll try to dig into that story and find out from our BBC sources what we can make of that. Now, last night, Livy called into the programme. She's concerned about her husband, who's in a care home.
But it's how my husband is going to be in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And my fear is, will he know me? The dementia's progressing, him not seeing us. So I just want to know, is there any policy on care homes?
Tony Stein is Chief Exec of Healthcare Management Solutions, who run 80 care homes with some 3,000 residents across the UK. Hello, Tony.
Good evening, Stephen.
So, what extra measures are care homes taking?
Well, it's interesting. Things are moving quite rapidly, and some advice is being issued on a regular basis now by Public Health England and the equivalents in Wales and Scotland. Most operators, though, are having to make decisions about visiting care homes based on local understanding of the situation, and nearly all the operators that I've spoken to, and certainly we are taking this approach, which is we're trying to minimise the amount of traffic through the homes. You've got to understand that it's very important for people of a certain age to still see their friends and family. So we haven't put a complete ban on people visiting at the moment, but what we've done is we've stopped non-essential traffic into care homes. So we'll get health and safety issues dealt with by contractors, but routine maintenance will leave for the time being, just simply to try and minimise the risk of the infection being brought into the home. It's really, really important, and I do emphasise that, we do take very seriously the fact that people need that social contact. So we're encouraging people to use digital means such as Skype, telephones, even emails, and so on to keep in touch.
We've seen the BBC's Washington correspondent Chris Buckler, who has been on this programme a number of times over recent days, was covering the story for us of the care home in Seattle, where coronavirus very much spread throughout that care home, and a significant number of the elderly people within that care home lost their lives. Are you not tempted, and is the care sector not tempted, Tony, to stop all visits?
Because we are. But you've also got to understand, care homes are a very unique environment. We have to have staff coming in and out of the home on a regular basis. They need to get home to their families too. And also, as people have already said, the elderly relatives, some of them are close to end of life. It would be very cruel, I think, to prohibit any visits. At the moment, what we're saying is if that you feel you've come into contact with anybody who may have coronavirus, or you've got symptoms that suggest that you might have coronavirus, then please don't visit the home. All of us, everybody in the sector is putting in the same sort of conditions of increased hygiene. So we've put extra hours on for our domestic staff, and we're asking people to wash their hands, use hand gels, and so on. It really is. The health and safety of our residents, as you can imagine, is our absolute number one priority.
But I guess there are further complications that we all know about, but we're just not thinking about. For example, it strikes me just talking to you that in a care home setting, you will have a number of residents in that care home who will have things like dementia and Alzheimer's and other diseases that cause confusion. So you have no chance of telling those people to be careful about where they put their hands, that they shouldn't touch their eyes and their face and all of those other things. So, you really are up against it.
Oh, it's a really, really difficult difficult situation, and you've hit the nail right on the head. I mean, we're all of us taking measures and introducing contingency plans. So, for example, in our care homes, we're identifying areas of the homes where we can, if you like, contain those people who perhaps are less able to understand the need for personal hygiene or to self-isolate, so that we can, if you like, identify areas that are containable, so to prevent them to infecting the remainder of the population of the home. I mean, we shouldn't get too panicked about this, but we have to be very sensible. And the only information that's available on this fairly new thread suggests that, for example, the mortality rates for over 80s is 15%, and between 70 and 79-year-olds it's 8%. Now, those are really high figures, and we were having conversations with people earlier on who were saying, well, I still want to see my mum, I still want to visit every day. And our view is very, very simple, that you might choose to do that, but actually you're making a decision perhaps for everybody else as well if you bring the virus into the home. Obviously, everybody's circumstances are different. If you have to take public transport before you get to the home, and it's a long journey, then you're increasing the risk against somebody perhaps who's been able to clean themselves and change their clothes and get in a car and go directly to the home. So circumstances will vary as well. But we'd ask everybody who enters a home to wash their hands and to make sure that they've got tissues handy and so on, and to be very careful. One of the other big issues, obviously, is what happens if our staff become infected and we have a shortage of staff. Those are other issues that we're having to take measures to address as well.
Do you feel that you're getting enough direction from government, Tony?
It's extremely difficult. I think government could mandate things, but I think at this stage, I mean, we've been operating care homes, as you can imagine, all of us that are in the business for many, many, many years, and we have to deal with epidemics of flu every year. We also have to deal with outbreaks of diarrhea and vomiting, norovirus and things like that. Obviously, people are bringing their children, their grandchildren into the homes and so on. So these things happen. So we're very, very good at dealing with these issues. So in a way, I think, the government's got a very big task on its hands. And to some extent, I think we're doing a very good job at the moment in managing this process. We're getting guidance, but I think the guidance is probably quite well balanced at this stage.
And finally, for those elderly people in the homes who do have the capacity to still understand, and they're watching this on the news, it must be quite distressing for them.
I think it is, but again, we have to understand. It's a bit like the annual flu epidemic. It's always going to affect those who are older, who've got compromised immune systems, who've got underlying health issues like asthma or bronchitis or other respiratory problems. So, if everybody's sensible, there's a very, very strong chance that we can maintain a good service in the homes, but there are going to be some sacrifices, and I think the main sacrifice that most people are going to have to bear, it's a sad one, is that they're probably going to have to reduce the number of times that they visit loved ones. And I don't think people should panic. I think we do know what we're doing, but these are difficult times, it has to be said.
Tony, thank you very much indeed. Nice to talk to you. Tony Stein, Chief Executive of Healthcare Management Solutions.